Welcome back to FPL Therapy, the weekly podcast hosted by me, FPL Raptor, where each week we are joined by a different guest. And for the first episode of Game Week 12, seeing as it is the international break, we have a slightly special episode and we actually have some group therapy as we are joined by two of my good friends and fellow content creators, FPL Harry and FPL Focal. Harry, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Been looking forward to this. Already laughing because before we started, the jokes were already going. But no, we've been planning this for a while. It's really nice to do content together, and then to do it in person, it's extra fun.
Yeah, you two are very cutely grouped together. How are you doing, Oscar? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Actually, yeah, since it's the international break.
Oh no, what have you got here? Oh, cracking open the beer.
I grabbed a few brew dogs. So I thought while we talk FPL, we can crack open one of these.
Fantastic. If you are listening on audio, feel free to jump over and come onto YouTube. That noise is Oscar tucking into the beers already, and it is 12:49.
Do you want one?
I'm okay for now. I've got to get the intro sorted first. We're already going on to London.
Harry's everyone.
Harry and Oscar are very tightly grouped together. They're best friends right now. But yeah, it's going to be a slightly different episode. And we're going to try and keep it fun, lighthearted, because it is the international break. And we've basically just taken loads and loads of your questions, and we're going to do our best to answer them. I will link both Harry and Oscar's channels in the description down below. Make sure to go and show them some love. Also, Harry has started his own podcast this season called Know the Score. He's literally just come from that right now. That goes live every Monday at 6 p.m.
Yep.
So please feel free to check that out. If you want some more sort of football content, but all of the FPL content bores you a bit, it's still obviously applicable to FPL, but a little bit more football based as well, where you cover some of the key stuff that happens at the weekend.
Yeah, taking the FPL out of it, we sort of review the 10 games of the weekend, hot topic stuff, talk about general stuff, what's going on in the football world. Yeah, it's nice.
Cool. So Know the Score. Again, all of that will be linked in the description.
Thank you.
Perfect. Also, this episode has been sponsored by the brilliant free-to-play fantasy football mobile game club. There is a link down below in the description to start your club journey. And later in the episode, Harry will be using some of his good luck that he gets in FPL to hopefully pull me a highly rated player for my club as well. So the way we're separating this podcast is we're going to very briefly review how we did in Game Week 11. Surprise, surprise, Harry outscored all of us. And then we're going to go through some more general FPL questions and then some Game Week 12 specific questions. And we're going to base a lot of that around a Game Week 12 wildcard draft. So if you are wildcarding in 12, this should be very useful for you. So we will start with Mr. Lucky himself. No skill, all luck. FPL Harry. What is like your rank? Are you still like the best manager over the last 4 years, is it?
They did update their rankings and I did drop a little bit. I think I'm like fourth now.
Okay, so you're a fraud.
Yeah,
okay.
Basically. So it doesn't matter unless you're first.
Harry fell off.
Yeah.
So yeah, Harry, like as early as this season, was like the best manager if you take his average ranks over the last 4 years. Incredibly good. And where are you ranked now?
79k.
So we're literally going to talk about in a season where everyone is struggling, unless your name's Harry. But Harry then got another 70 points this week. So for those of you on audio, Fabianski in goal with a big 9-pointer. He got a late bonus point.
That late bonus point was really nice.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Aït-Nouri, Gabriel and Lewis in the back line. Obviously, Aït-Nouri getting the clean sheet, which we didn't think we owned him for. A midfield of Saka, Salah captain, Palmer, and then Burmo. And the front line, a little bit disappointing, actually. You had Solanke, Wood both blanking, and then Cunha with the 12-pointer. So just talk through your team. How's it gone?
Yeah, like of course, 70 points, very happy. A couple of weeks ago, I made the decision to sell Haaland, and it's gone really well. So last week, I kept Solanke, and he scored his 16. And this week, I brought in Cunha, was for Haaland, and he scored 12 this week. And Salah capped both times. So very happy with that. Defensively, not great. Like I've got double Arsenal. Gladly, I benched Raya for Fabianski. I was out on Saturday watching the new Paddington Bear film.
Very nice.
If anyone wants to go and watch it, it is quite enjoyable. But yeah, 9-pointer when I came in and saw Fabianski with all his points. I did bench Mykolenko for Lewis, which is probably the only mistake that I made this week. But I didn't have Haaland, so I wanted a little bit of City in my team. Yep. Maybe if I had Haaland, I would have, gone for Mykolenko. But with West Ham, they had Bowen back in training, so I was just like, I'm just going to play Lewis. So apart from that, I'm really happy with my team. The premiums in Saka and Palmer have had a couple of blanks, but they're nice fixtures coming up, and we're hoping they're not going on international duty. So.
But yeah, very frustratingly, you're not only doing well, but we're speaking about a wildcard draft, and you made the comment, it does look an awful lot like your team, which is obviously a good position to be in. Oscar, your team. By the way, look at the free promotion Brewdog you're getting and just stood up on the... I mean, the cat's okay. They're literally covering Oscar's face. This is when we find out he's like a shareholder in the business. Right, so Oscar, 62 points. Also very good. Well, I mean, we've all actually had pretty good weeks, which is nice. We don't actually need the therapy this week. Yeah, so the big decision that went against you this week was you started Raya.
Yeah, I was whinging in the group chat about that one, wasn't I?
With Fabianski on the bench. But in hindsight, it's easy to say you should have started the player with the better fixture, but Arsenal just such a better defence. And we looked at the XG and it wasn't that different for the two games. So a little bit unfortunate there. Back line of Guardiola, Gabriel, Porro conceded but got the assist. Your midfield four, again, slightly disappointing given the fixture, but Salah captain was great. Palmer, Johnson, blank, and then Burmo, and then a front line of Wood, Cunha, and Strand Larsen with the double up on the Wolves attack.
I know.
Does that feel okay now?
Ballsy, yeah. I'm glad I did it because I had Haaland as well. So I sold him for Strand Larsen, which obviously didn't get me anything, but I sold Rodgers for Salah to captain Salah.
Yeah.
So in the end, it was points gained, but yeah, it's nervy now when you don't have Haaland because you know, like he's got it in him. This
is the thing.
And when he got that early goal as well,
Yeah.
20 minutes
I
or
was
so in,
fearing the worst.
I was like, oh, here we go. And you had him captain as well. So I was like, oh, Ross is on for a massive weekend.
Exactly. And it wasn't. But it's been punishing me having Haaland. But let me tell you, I enjoy my weekends so much more. Like you're now feeling what I felt for the first 5, but it's worse for me because he was actually scoring 17 points as when I didn't. But it's the most painful thing not owning Haaland. I would say it's like significantly scarier having no Haaland, no Salah. Like when I don't have Salah, it's not that I don't care, but it's not as Haaland is just terrifying. I think it's the way he even looks on the pitch. Like when he starts running and sprinting at full speed, it's like this scary stuff.
Are you going to keep him for Tottenham?
I think I have to. So we'll go through my team because I have Salah and Palmer already, and I don't have Saka, which is an issue. I'd like to get him, but is it worth selling Haaland for Saka? Like if I didn't have Salah, Haaland would be gone in a heartbeat. You've got to have Salah ahead of Haaland now, but when I've already got him, I don't know. So my team, 66 points this week. It was only captaincy, which didn't go very well for me, to be honest. But I also had the Fabianski 9-pointer. Backline, same as Harry's, of Gabriel, Aitner, Lewis. Midfield 4 of Salah, but I didn't captain him. Palmer and Burmo, and then a Rodgers 1-pointer. But in all honesty, Rodgers against Liverpool, I wasn't expecting much. And then a front line, they all returned of Cunha, Rao, and Haaland. So it was really a brilliant week. I just captained Haaland rather than Salah. And again, everyone hates XG, but if you look at the XG, maybe slightly unfortunate not to get more from Haaland in that game. And he was on 8 points in like the 100th minute. And he just got that silly booking, which took him down to 5.
Yellow, because that was -1 for the yellow. And then -2 dropped out bonus.
Exactly.
So like 6 points as captain.
Exactly. And even it got me 8, it's still quite a bit off Salah, but it feels better than a 5 points. So it's 10 doubled.
I didn't think we'd be sitting here with me and Oscar not having Haaland and you having him at the start of the season. Like that was just never going to be the way it was going to go.
I had this moment of realization the other day. I was just sat there defending Haaland on Twitter and I was like, what's happened to me?
Right,
what have I become?
I never thought I'd sell him. And then look at us now.
I know. I'm literally like the Haaland fan club on Twitter trying to defend the guy that has ruined my entire life in the season at the
I
start.
couldn't believe that Spurs game, by the way. Like I had really high hopes for Sunday because I've got Porro, I've got Johnson. Like they'll get something against Ipswich, surely a few goals. They're projected the most goals, but like Porro got an assist to be fair. But
when Spurs went 2-0 down, I almost thought that is so much worse because I was like, they're going to win this game. So that's almost like a guaranteed 3 goals, it felt like at that point.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't do it. But shout out to Ipswich, by the way. They closed out that game incredibly well. And that is one of the criticisms of these lower sides. They go in the lead and then they throw it away. Spurs threw pretty much everything at them that they had in that game. And I think Ipswich dealt with it quite well. I've just seen everyone say Spurs were terrible. I've not seen any respect of Ipswich. And I'm a bit of an Ipswich fanboy. Leif Davis, big shout out. But yeah.
Spurs weren't great though.
Oh, no, they were bad.
They have gifted wins to both Crystal Palace and Ipswich now. But I was disappointed with Solanke as well. I wanted more. Like 2 weeks ago when they lost to Palace, he was like, oh, let's sell him. And then the 16-pointer against Villa, and we were like, oh, buy him. People were buying him back. Like he went back up in price, and now everyone's going to sell him again, I think.
So, I mean, we're going to discuss more in a bit, but on Solanke, if we're going based on XG, you could almost say that the 3 games where he had like no shots, that was the anomaly. Because the 2 before that, he had over 1 XG in both games. Then he comes back against Aston Villa, gets 1.6. And then even in this game, he had the chances where he had at least 2 or 3 shots in the box.
Yeah, 4 shots.
So if you're looking at XG, the anomaly would have been those 3 games where he blanked.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at returns and actual output, the anomaly was 20 minutes against Aston Villa. So what do we make of Solanke now? Because like, where would you go, Harry?
I think Spurs, I don't want a team that I'm just so inconsistent. I know they're not like massively priced, so like a Johnson is okay to hold, but it feels like a very easy exit route with them going to City this week. So I mean, there's loads of other forwards we'll talk about finding form with nice runs of fixtures on penalties and like playing 90 every week. So I'm pretty happy to sell him now.
I think if you can like cover him this week, it's not terrible to just keep him and then you play him home to Fulham. But yeah, as Harry said, like there's so many good forwards now. Like Evan Nilsson scored, João Pedro's back. Wissa got like 2 goals, Cunha. So there's just so many other options for cheaper right now. So I think a lot of people will be looking to pivot him or maybe go up to Isak.
Thank God we sold him for the Villa game, so we didn't have Solanke for him, which I'm so glad he didn't.
Yeah, honestly, because after that haul, I was like, I got rid of him for Cunha, who at least got an assist, but I was like, this could get worse this week. And luckily, like, he blanked and Cunha came good. So I think in the end, they probably must have done similarly over the 2 game weeks.
Yeah, we wouldn't play this game if it was just luck. Apart from Harry's only luck, he makes no good decisions.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't play if it was only luck. But I do think you enjoy the game more when you just step back and go, "God, is this a game where there is a large element of like we're not getting into a luck skill debate here, but there is so much skill required in FPL. You cannot finish consistently high, especially if you've had 3 or 4 good ranks. And it just doesn't happen if you don't have the skill and you don't make good decisions. But to some extent, like you can put out a brilliant team. What is that thing you do? The worst active team in the top 10k. That won this week.
The worst active team.
Yeah, the worst active team in the top 10k. It was a sensational team, really. Like it was really well chosen. There weren't any bad picks, really. I mean, he did have double Forest, but
they had Raya, they had Trent, Vardiol, Dallo, Gibbs White, Foden, Saka, Palmer, Sun Captain, Raul and Wood. So they just got 1 assist, which was Jimenez.
And where did that take them from as well? What was the rank they went from to?
They got 23 points. That took them from 7k to 131k.
And this is where the luck comes in because, they might have got lucky to get to 7k, but you look at that team, that does not deserve 20. No. Like Harry's team, the lucky man. Harry's
Why am I being called out here?
Harry didn't deserve 70 points.
Outrageous.
He deserved 50.
Yeah. So, but really, I think if you had a bad week or if you had a good week, just realize that the luck comes and goes.
Yeah.
Just on that team, I'm so happy that Gvardiol blanked. His goals are so painful when you don't own them.
He's just so good though.
He almost scored it right at the end as well. I saw that fly past the post. I was like, oh, not again.
He's just so silky smooth. Like, like a Cancelo. Do you remember when Cancelo was? It just didn't feel like he should be a defender. Every time Guardiola's got the ball, he's like more talented than maybe that's their solution. Is just get Guardiola further forward.
But left wing.
Then they concede loads of goals because they've got like 1 or 2 defenders playing in defense. Exactly. And there's just holes everywhere.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. So what we're going to do now then is just go through some general sort of FPL and content creation questions. So again, we just asked for all of your questions. I've made a massive list of them. We go through and just have a bit of a chat around them. Then we're going to show a Game Week 12 wildcard and answer some specific questions around Game Week 12 and some of your dilemmas. This is obviously very sort of early thoughts because we've got the international break. So sit back, relax. Don't make transfers unless, as Oscar will discuss probably a bit later, unless you might be priced out, you might be forced into it. But otherwise, I would just kick back and relax and enjoy the international break. So we'll start with you, Oscar, for the first question. So the first question that came in was, has the game actually been harder this season for different reasons like the pricing of the players? Why are so many managers, again, unless you're Harry, really struggling this season? But even you, like you're obviously had so many consistently good seasons. You're still very highly ranked for now.
But before I sold Haaland, like I was still like 400 or 500k, which was fine.
And you were like top of the content creators league, which there's this league on FPL Game Week where it ranks all the content creators. And you were like towards the top at 500k, which is almost unheard of. There's always one content creator that's a flying season, and there have been a couple. So, Oscar, what do you think is the reason that so many managers are struggling?
One thing I will say is it's still quite early, and the ranks are still like really condensed. Like one huge week, like when Harry sold Haaland for Salah, that was like 30 points gained or something. Like just one decision like that. Like Fabio Borges, the FPL GOAT, right? He was sitting about 1.3 million before this week, so he'd had a difficult start as well. He activated his wildcard. He got 90. Now he's 300k. So suddenly, like, it's all back on. In terms of why, I think probably the main thing that you'd look towards is the pricing, because you just can't fit all the premiums like last season. We've probably all had this before now. Like we talked about Palmer 5 mil. Saka phone were cheaper. Haaland wasn't 15 mil. So last season it was just an easier game because of that. You could fit them all in. So that's probably one of the main reasons. I think a lot of people overlooked Palmer because of that City game in the beginning. And because of Nkunku
as well. Harry did tell us explicitly in our group chat, by the way, Nkunku's such better value than Palmer, so I blame you.
If he was playing every week, he'd be in everyone's team.
He has shown that, hasn't he?
But he's not.
Smashing it in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. Stat padding in Europe.
I've got him on Europa Fantasy, but no.
I think pricing, but like as you're alluding to, the premiums are just all doing so well. Like there hasn't been a single premium that hasn't delivered at least at various points this year. Salah very consistently. Haaland has been really good, then really bad. Son, when he's played, has actually been pretty decent. Saka's been ticking along quite nicely. And then, as you say, Palmer exploded in a few weeks, which has made it, if you don't own him in those, it's quite difficult. And so I feel like people are actually being punished now if they're switching their premiums. I feel like those that unless you make it a perfect point, but those that went without Haaland, then brought Haaland in, it's gone terribly. Maybe if you start with Salah, then switch Salah. Maybe if you went to Palmer after the 25-pointer, I feel like you're not being rewarded now for like trying to switch and time the premium. So maybe the lesson could be, for the most part, trying to hold the premiums a little bit longer term. The
other thing might be, I'd be interested to see your Game Week 1 teams as well, but I'm just looking at my Game Week 1 team, and there's some players here that were great, but in the wrong order. Like I had Isak and Bruno, who were pretty shocking at the start of the season in terms of their output. And then you look at like game week 11, Bruno, Hall, Isak, 1 goal, 1 assist. Like Isak's scored in 4 games in a row in all comps.
Kwanzaa and Eze in there.
Kwanzaa.
What a pick that was.
On a bench Dunks, clean sheet. But like, it's also that just owning players in the wrong order. Because now Isak and Bruno just look like great options. But at the start of the season, they just weren't doing it.
I think people overestimate where they need to be at this point of the season as well. Like I suppose I've always said, like, this international break is when we start to look at our ranks. So that's when it starts to become slightly relevant. Like, we're 11 weeks in now, we're starting to get to the point where it's important. But like, we've seen people jump up ranks crazy amounts in like 1 or 2 weeks. Like, if you're 2 or 3 million, like the top 50k, the top 20k is absolutely still a possibility this season. And with the pricing, there's so many more ways to get to it now than there were in previous seasons. Like previous seasons, you would have 1 or 2 players in your 11 that can make you go up or down in ranks. I've got like 8 or 9 players in my team every week that can change my rank, and it will swing massively. Like every week, my rank is halving or doubling, depending on whether it's a good week or a bad week. And that's going to continue because of these players and the pricing. So, yeah.
That's a really good point. Each week in the past, I'm like, we're going to talk about effective ownership in a second, which is basically like ownership around your rank. But apart from Haaland, Salah, and then to some extent like Palmer, I think the next highest are in Mbermo maybe, but there's like loads of players around like 20 to 30%. Yeah. There are very few players. I mean, previous seasons, we've had like weeks where there's been 3 or 4 players all hovering around 100%, and it's like you're going to get massively punished. If you have, and I feel very template at the moment, if you have Haaland and Salah, and maybe you're covering Mbermo and Palmer as well, there aren't many players that them on their own can really damage you. And that's exciting. I've not seen such a variation in teams in a very long time.
No.
There's, of course, those key players. We're all going to go for maybe one Arsenal defender. We all go for probably Salah. But the filler players around that are really exciting. And we're going to discuss a bit later, like, there are going to be new ones coming in from GW12 that we've not even really considered now. And then you can go to there instead. Yeah. So I think it's an exciting season. Speaking of EO then, and I'm not asking you this in particular, Harry, but how much importance would you place on a player's EO? So this person says, for me, it doesn't influence my decision to bring in or out players, but I do consider it when captaining. A major reason I've been too fearful to captain anyone other than Haaland so far. Interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I probably pay more attention to EO than the average person. I think that's probably fair to say. Partly because I don't like to put myself in the position to be unlucky at a weekend. Like, I know there's all the jokes and all the stuff that I do get quite lucky at times, but I don't often put myself in the position to be unlucky by putting big players who can throw me down the ranks not in my team. Now, at the moment, of course, that's Haaland, right? But then before it was Palmer and Salah. So like, yes, Haaland is a negative, but now I'm covering off more things than maybe I did before. I think captaincy is a big thing. I play my captaincy very safe. Like, I'm almost certain that my captaincy armband won't be on anyone that isn't Haaland, Salah, Palmer, maybe Saka this season outside of a double game week. So captaincy, I play it pretty safe because those players are highly owned. They're highly captained for a reason, because like, they are the best players in the league. They're most likely to score goals every week, kind of no matter who they're playing against. When picking players, I mean, I've gone against the EO a couple of times this season and it hasn't massively worked. Often the players being brought in by everyone and highly owned are that for a reason. Like, EO is often a good indicator of good players in FPL. It's not always. We get bandwagons that don't pay off, but often it's a good indication of good players.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We'll go on to that question now, actually, because lots of people are asking, such as, Harry is ridiculously consistent across seasons. What, if anything, does he think he does differently to other FPL managers and content creators? I didn't really think about that, but we always joke that you're very template. But that's quite a nice way of viewing it, of just minimize the things that could go wrong in a given week. I do always seem to look at your team and think there's not much that you could suffer from in this week.
Yeah, like I look on live FPL like once the deadline passed just to see who like my big rank threats are, and I tend to own like probably 7 of the top 10. Like last year it was 7 of the top like 8 or so of the rank threat. So yeah, like I don't massively put myself in a position, which is why this season's a little bit more out of my comfort zone, because there's loads of players who are really good that I just can't own because I can't cover them all. Like, thankfully, someone like Watkins, someone like Trent, who are some of those players who I would fear haven't been great. So there is a smaller pool. But yeah, I mean, I do play it pretty safe, and you know, it does work because you know, a lot of the exciting picks that you go on off the template, yeah, they might be great for a couple of weeks, but they're differential a lot of the time for the sake of it.
Yeah. Do you think you do anything else? Is it just covering that off? Like, what do you do? Obviously, you watch the football, you do the analysis, but is there anything that you think you do differently to someone like, because Oscar and I have had okay seasons. Oscar was number 1 in the world at one point, which is, I've never even got close to that. You've probably not got close to number 1 in the world. So, but how do you do it? I actually genuinely want to know, because as much as
typing up notes,
yeah,
like the answers,
like honestly, and we always
that,
said like the reason, like people, I got questions. Are you jealous of Harry? Like absolutely. Like I would love to be that consistently
FPL
good.
or just generally?
Just generally, I want to be you. But in FPL specifically, what do you think you do other than that that's slightly different, or that you think you do well? Maybe
I don't know. I am a massive planner.
Okay,
like. I plan far in advance. Like I'm looking at fixture swings the whole time. Like I rarely do transfers for like 1 or 2 weeks. Like, I know like people bought Fernandes this week and it's gone really well, but loads of times it's really difficult to call specific fixtures. Like we look at Spurs again this week, like loads of times, and it's happened in previous seasons where they'll be like, I need this player for this 1 week and then I'll deal with them after. Like it sometimes works and it sometimes comes good, but it often puts you in a worse position the week after. So I am quite a long-term manager, which again tends to go hand in hand with being quite boring, because you own players who are best for the long term rather than exciting picks every like week.
And do you think the 5 free transfers is probably going to benefit you for that reason? Because we're almost forced to make moves in previous seasons because we don't want to burn, but it probably benefits you that you can get away with rolling.
Just roll every week.
Exactly. And people won't question it as much because it's not like you're burning transfers, or you can actually roll and then really utilize those. You used a double or triple transfer recently as well, didn't you, to your benefit? So that probably benefits you more now.
Yeah, I think I've got up to 3 has been the most I've had so far this season. But I wish I could get to more, but there's still been things I've had to fix. Like, there's always going to be problems. This 5 free transfers is nice. I like it as an addition to the game, but it's a lot easier. It's a lot harder to get to it than you think it is.
How many have you got to, Oscar? Have you got to 3 or 4?
I think just 2.
Just 2.
That's it so far.
You're not a particular.
It's one of those,
you're not a patient manager though. You
No.
like getting quite aggressive with your transfer sometimes.
I think that's where I go wrong sometimes. I'm not a patient manager. I don't know if I'll ever get to 5 this season.
No.
I'd like to think so, but I think it's a myth. I don't even know if it's a real thing they added.
My brother got to 5 this week, and he sent me his team and said, "Should I roll?" And I was like, "Oh no,
can't keep rolling."
Oh no, you've reached the maximum. Like, how have you got to 5 in the first place, and then don't want to make a transfer again?
I posted a team this morning. They haven't made a transfer yet this season. They have used their bench boost and they're 1.9k. Other than that,
that makes me feel terrible.
It doesn't it?
You know, you've got that what if machine where you can type in your ID. I've lost like 70 or 80 points because I had Salah captain in game week 1. So if I'd have just left my team from game week 1, I would have captained Salah every week. I had Solanke in there. I had Isak, who's done really well when he's been available. So my team's actually probably done worse from all of the decisions that I've made.
All those hours.
Yeah. Cool. So, Oscar, question for you, because I know you've played chips in single game weeks quite often, especially a bench boost, which helped you to reach number 1 in the world. That was in a single game week, wasn't it? So someone asked, given the fact that we have less double game weeks this week, or we're probably going to, and if you don't know, we're expecting to have 2 double game weeks this season, unless there's something random which chucks us a surprise. Do you prefer triple captain or bench boost in a single game week if you only had to choose one? So if you're going to use one in a double and one in a single, which one do you prefer to use in a single game week?
I would say triple captain because I think it's the weakest chip, but I think it's team dependent. Like if you happen to have a bench that lines up absolutely perfect, where you know they're all going to start, I don't think it's that bad to use it in a single, given now what we know about the 2 expected doubles. I say that. I did do it that one season. I got rank 1, but I knew like it was an opportunity that week and I had a really strong bench. And also like, I don't know, maybe it played in my mind a bit. My channel was like really small then. I was like, fuck it, what's the worst that could happen? I'll just do it. Like no one's going to know if it goes wrong.
I think I would agree with you, and that was going to be my answer. And I reckon Oscar will say triple captain. So let me try and think of justification for a bench boost. It's a bit of a trap sometimes. The amount of times that I've wildcarded specifically for a bench boost in a certain double game week, I've then got to that double game week sometimes. I don't even have 4 doublers. And the players that do double, like last season, Brighton had like Newcastle and Man United. It was an absolute state. So I do feel like they can be a trap. And like you don't just look at how many points you score with the bench boost. It's the net points around that. So do you think there is some level of just get the bench boost out of the way?
But there is a difference this season, which is the extra roll transfers. In the past, I agree, like often we'd save our wild cards till really late when we've missed opportunities to use it and actually get more points. And you can't really measure that. It's hard to know like what would I have gotten if I'd saved it. And we ended up wild carding like, right before a double, super late. Sometimes game week 35, for example. But nowadays, obviously, you could roll up to 5, so you could wildcard game week 31 with, roll a few transfers, and you can tackle the bench boost a bit easier in a double. So initial thoughts were triple captain. Would you go with that, Harry?
Yeah, I probably would do the triple captain in the single, and I haven't used mine. Have you used yours?
Crack, get out. I very badly used mine in game week 9 for Haaland.
I haven't used mine, and I probably will end up having to use it in a single game week, but I'll probably just save it towards the end of the season and hope it snows at Christmas and hope I get lucky and there's an extra double in there at some point. I do agree, like the bench boost is harder to plan. It's harder to like get right all the time. Like if we get there and those doubles are just for the top teams, and then there's one like Wolves get a double and it's City and Arsenal because City and Arsenal are the ones with the doubles, then I'm a bit like, well, maybe the triple captain on a Salah or Haaland is better in that double and you just play the single. So if you haven't used any chips and you get to a week where you want to use your bench boost because it looks really nice, then go for it. But the issue is so many of our benches have players on it that we just wouldn't bench boost at the moment.
Yeah, this is the thing. But I think like with the addition of Fabianski now playing, for example, all of a sudden I am looking at, I wouldn't now because I've got like Dibbling and Leaf Davis, but I'm looking at sets of transfers where in like 3 or 4 weeks, I've got Fabianski with 3 slightly stronger players. I mean, the answer might be both, because if we're going to have 2 doubles, we've got the mystery chip, which I'm going to ask you about in a second. If the mystery chip is better played in a double game week, and we've got a free hit, which yes, you can play in a blank, but it's higher upside. We saw last season in double game week 34, it went absolutely massive. I do wonder if both bench boost and triple captain in a single game week could work. What do we think the mystery chip will be? Oscar, you sometimes tend to know some things. Do you know anything? No. What would your hypothesis be about what it could be?
Well, I've seen some stuff floated like double captain. You get captain points from your vice or that sort of thing, or you just get your automatic best captain. But I don't think it'd be something like that. I think that'd be quite weak if it's something like that. I'd like it to be something like a manager chip. So you pick maybe like a team. So it could be like you pick Pep and you get points from how the whole team does for the game week.
Oh, that's really nice.
That'd be
completely different. Yeah, I hope it's not just like an extension of like someone said like an unlimited, like a limitless, where it's free hit but unlimited money. That's just another free hit.
I don't see that either, because it's just, like you say, it's basically a free hit. I think they wouldn't make such a drastic change unless it was something really unique and new.
Do you think they know? This is the other question, right? So
they must do.
By the way, if you haven't seen yet, they released at the start of the season that there's going to be this mystery chip. Is it January it will be announced?
No, we're meant to get it in December.
Oh, we get it in December.
Well, they announce it then. I don't know if we get it till the first game of the new year.
It's going to be soon that we find out.
Yeah, it's not long actually.
So hopefully they know. But there was rumors going around or suggestions that maybe they just said, we've got a mystery chip. What do you think it will be? In the hope that we gave them a good idea. What do you think, Harry? Any ideas?
I wonder if because I agree. Like my first thought was like 2 captains or like whole team scores twice or limitless or something like that. I think it needs to be something different. I wonder if it's going to be like clean sheets or a double or something like that, something at the other end of the pitch. Like they have that in the championship one when it was Gaffer last year. They had like saves were worth like every save you got a point or something like that. The issue is I don't particularly want it to be a chip that you have to play in a double because that requires planning. And if you've then not told us at the beginning of the season that we're going to have a chip that suddenly needs to be played in a double, I feel like it neglects the point of planning in FPL, and I love that part of the game.
It's hard to imagine a chip where its utility wouldn't be better in a double game week though.
That's what I'm thinking. Most of them would, but even both of yours, that would require some serious transfers and restructuring our squads to get players from a certain team or to get players that make more saves or make more tackles. And I do wonder, FPL Challenge, maybe we should be looking through that and thinking, what if they tested there?
Yeah, it could be something from there.
They basically admitted that they're using FPL Challenge as a testing ground for future changes. I do wonder if one of those, where they got maybe more engagement in that 1 week, like where like newly promoted clubs got double or something like that, might be seized. But again, then they're forcing us to like transfer in newly promoted players almost. But that's kind of nice, I guess.
I might get in trouble for leaking, but do you want to know what it is?
Okay.
So you pick any game week and you get Harry's team for that week.
That's overpowered. That's going to be the intro, like Stephen Bartlett and Darius Yo does the clickbait intro. Do you want to know what it is? That's going to be my one. There we go. Cool. This is actually a really interesting question. So Harry, when Haaland was considerably cheaper last season, it was widely accepted as quite a poor decision to go with Freeman. And I will back that. I think on quite a consistent basis, we said doesn't work with the structure. Only go for 2. We're kind of very, very, very widely accepting now, go for 3. And up till this point, many people were saying Haaland plus 2 others. Now it's Salah plus 2 others, but even Palmer's quite expensive. Why has there been this sudden shift in never go for a premium versus kind of the 3-mim versus it's now kind of the widely accepted norm?
Yeah, I think it's because the sub 6 million players in all positions are doing really well versus in previous years. So like last year, like Foden you wanted, it was like 8.5, like Saka in at the same price, like Trent in at the same price, like Watkins up front, like Isak. All of these players were too expensive. although we had like Palmer, all of these players were generally too expensive to then try and fit a third premium in. Whereas now, like we've all got Cunha, like I've got Chris Wood, like João Pedro's back, like all the defenders we want are just 4.5 million. Like midfielders, you got Rodgers, you got Smith Rowe. So I think it's more that then just leaves us money in the back. And like no Trent is huge. Like none of us really wanting him just frees up so much money.
Yeah, we've got that goal for the very, very, very expensive players doing amazingly.
Yeah.
And then the very cheap players doing amazingly. Apart from like Mbermo, Jackson, I mean, is that it? Isaac at points, but like that price between like 6 and 9 has been really disappointing. I remember last season, one of the big videos that kept making was the £7.5 million mids. There was like 8 of them, and everyone wanted to go for them. So I just think that because the cheap players are doing so well, and because the very expensive players are doing so well, like we said, the premiums deliver. I just can't build a team with more than like 1 or 2 players in that mid price, unless you really want to back like Watkins you could bring into that price, Solanke, Jackson, Gordon, and Mbermo. But I'd much rather have the likes of Raul, Cunha, Chris Wood. Like they're cheap enough and they're performing. So yeah, I don't think you need a 3-premium structure, by the way. I have seen a couple of wildcards floating around where they've got Salah, Palmer, and then they've just really spread the money around, and it's beautiful. It looks amazing, especially if you've got good team value. But I see no reason why you wouldn't want to chuck a third premium in there.
What I would say is the Salah, Palmer, Haaland drafts, that's what you've got at the moment. I generally don't love them for the long term. Like I think at the moment they're working because some of these cheap players are doing okay. And as we're saying, none of these mid-price players are doing really well. But all it takes is a Bruno or a Isaac and you suddenly want them. And like the obvious place to get money is then out of one of those premiums. So yeah, I've got Salah, Palmer, and then I don't have Haaland. I've gone Saka, and I feel like that leaves me enough money. For periods, it will work, but I think over the long term, it's too much on the 3.
Yeah, I think one of Salah or Haaland is the way forward with 2 other premiums. I'm almost deliberately leaving Haaland in for as long as I can, because all it takes is a Haaland hat-trick and a Salah blank. And I'm not saying people would suddenly change, but they'd be like, do we shift back to Haaland? So I'm trying to leave that decision as long as possible, because I fully agree with you. If I look at the issue with my team right now, there's not a particularly good balance. I've got Dibbling. I'm starting Rodgers every week. My defense isn't very strong. I've got Cunha and Raul. It looks fine because Rodgers and Raul and Cunha are all delivering for me, but it will get to a point where already I want Isak. There's no way I can get Isak without selling Haaland. Yeah. So I agree that right now freemium works, but probably one of Haaland or Salah moving forward. Cool. So, Oscar, how has your play style changed after you started to make content with the fear of not getting followers, fear of views dropping off, fear of people moving to others? We even spoke about already that with your channel growing at the start, you saw that opportunity to bench boost to really propel yourself. Yeah. Has there been a drastic change to your decision making since starting content in a good or bad way?
I definitely don't make a decision like with like views in mind or something like, oh, I should do this, otherwise I'll lose viewers or something like that. But I've definitely changed in the sense like I'm way more analytics now. Like when I first started, it was just purely like vibes and just guesswork. And then I kind of started learning about analytics, expected data, like FPL optimization, projected points and stuff like that, which can sometimes help. Sometimes it can lead you down like the wrong way. But yeah, I'd say it's changed in that sense. But no, not really. Not loads.
Do you think the reason that we have to go a bit more analytical, because there are very few content creators that don't use data, is we need to justify our decisions?
Yeah, it's something to lean on as well, I think. Yeah. Like at least like the data pointed towards this and so on. Like using an example, I sold Solanke when he had those 2 shots in 3 game weeks. And his XG was shocking. So I was like, I'll get rid of Solanke. I'll bring Cunha in. And that was the week Solanke got 16 points. So it can be like a gift and a curse sometimes if you read too much or try and get, find bias in the data to lead you what you want to do.
We can't just turn up to a video and just say, I like that player. Well, we could, but I don't think people will consistently trust your opinion if your reasoning for bringing a player is vibes and because you like them. There's got to be some level of objectivity.
I think nowadays most people use analytics that do very, very well consistently. Like there are definitely players out there that will just do the eye test or just watch games match of the day. But I think nowadays, would you agree with that? More and more of the top managers are heavily reliant on data one way or another.
Yeah, I think so, because I just think we're such biased human beings. I did an entire episode with Simon March about all of the things that are wrong with us as humans in our decision making. And we can even skew data if we want to look at it a certain way, like frame it in a certain way or change the sample size. But generally it removes a little bit of the bias in our decision making. And as much as I trust my eyes, I've been playing football my whole life. I watch a lot of football. My analysis isn't particularly good. I'm not an elite level analyst that works for a Premier League club or anything like that.
Don't undersell yourself.
So I know that sometimes the amount of times I've watched a game, I've gone, that player was brilliant. And then I look and they've like not had a shot and not had a key pass. And I'm like, So they were good, but maybe not from an FPL perspective.
But that's why watching football is still needed. Like I don't actually use that much data, but because I'm an analytical minded person, my decision making is often quite in line with what analytics people are doing. But there are some games where you can come out of it and they have rubbish data, but if you watch the game, you get a very, very different take on it. Like they might have not taken the shot, so they don't have to get the XG. They might have been just behind the player who scored, so of course they're not getting the XG for that. So there is definitely benefit to watching football. And I've made a few transfers recently where I think it's based part of the reason for selling Haaland was I've watched City and I've just not thought they were great despite some of the underlying data that he's had recently. Like buying some of the players that I have bought, like Cunha, for example, a big fan of his because I've watched Wolves, not necessarily because his underlying data was fantastic. So I think XG and XA is a really good benchmark, but I don't think you should just rule out a player because they have bad data. Good data often means a good player, but bad data doesn't always mean a bad pick.
I would agree with that. And a good example is actually the Man United game this week. So Man United accumulated 0.7 XG and Leicester 0.8. I do think it flattered United slightly, but I also don't think Man United should have comfortably won that game overall. If you hadn't shown me the data, I would have said there's no chance that Leicester accumulated more XG or had a better game.
No.
Bruno was unbelievable. It was fantastic. Yeah. And if you look at his data, it's actually one of his worst data performances of the season because he scored a long shot. He got an assist where he missed a big chance, basically. And then he passed it sideways to Garnacho for a banger. So his data in that wouldn't have been as good. And that's where you then need to pair that. So I do think that the best balance is a bit of both, but we won't get into any more eye test versus.
For example, if a player is taking defenders on, whipping the ball in, and the defender or the forward, doesn't even connect with the ball to shoot, there's no XG.
Exactly.
There's no expected assist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll go to you, Oscar. How do you keep your motivation energy levels up producing so much content, and how do you balance this with work and home life? People don't realize. I'd like to ask both of you, if you consider everything together, so I'm talking planning for videos, let's say watching football, but only if it's in mind for a video, prepping, scripts for you write thousands of words for each video.
I do. Yeah, 2,000 videos.
Exactly. All of the editing, then replying to comments. How many hours a week do you reckon you work? And I know it is a bit of a blurred line because we have, by the way, amazing jobs. I'm not full-time, but you're both full-time FPL content creators. We all earn money from FPL. It's amazing to be able to do that. But how many hours a week do you reckon you probably work on average?
God, it's hard to say.
It's more than 40, I'll tell you that for sure. Yeah. It's got to be.
Do you reckon? I don't know if mine's as much as that.
Okay, so Oscar's lazy. That's what we're learning.
I think it's less than my 9 to 5.
Oh, mine's more.
I would say much more. I worked out it's about 70 hours.
Oh, really? But what I will say, it's hard to measure because I'll make a start on a video the night before. So I'll be working, 10 to 11 p.m. to make a dent, and then I'll be streaming on Saturday. So it's a bit different. The schedule's very different.
Yeah, it's very flexible.
And it depends if you count stuff doing graphics and posting on social media and so on.
Yeah.
Whether
you definitely do more than 40 hours. You just enjoy it enough that you don't consider it work.
Probably that, yeah.
I think, because I'm sat there scrolling through my phone sometimes with family, get off your phone. I'm like, I'm actually working. And really I'm scrolling through Twitter. Yeah. But is growing our socials work? It probably is. But how do you manage that? Because we've all guarantee felt burnt out at points, especially international breaks.
Yeah.
It does sometimes feel like a break. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I go into right now, I could carry on making videos. I don't feel particularly burnt out, but there definitely are times. So how do you think you manage that balance? Because I remember actually Let's Talk FPL before I started making YouTube content, I was watching one of your streams and he said he finds it very difficult because there's this blurred line between work and let's say play, actually enjoying, because watching a game's work and then scrolling through Twitter is, and we can't ever fully switch off. So how do you manage that?
Have you seen The Bear, the TV series?
I've not, but talk to us about it.
Well, there's a scene in that. It's incredibly stressful. He's working under high pressure. Obviously not very comparable to FPL, but he's really under it, struggling. And there's a piece of paper that he's got stuck on the wall. And can we swear on this?
Go for it.
And a piece of paper says, keep fucking going. And he looks at that every day. So this is really I don't know if this will help you guys at all, but I saw that and I really liked that scene. And I wrote one on a piece of paper and stuck it on my monitor. So every day when I get up, I see it there. And it's a little extra bit of motivation. But no, I don't know. I guess I look after the hours. I don't overdo it. Don't push myself too much. I felt burnt out before in past seasons, but not for a long time. And because you really enjoy what you're doing, you're less likely to get to that point, I think.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Harry?
Yeah, I don't know. So this is my first season of it
full-time,
being full-time. So I suppose it's a new feeling for me that it's in like, doesn't feel like work, but like before I would do my normal 9 to 5 and like I'd get home and then I'd do it and it would feel like completely like, oh, I'm doing this because I need to put a video out and stuff like that. Now it feels very slightly different, but I know, like I say, like I said earlier, I do more hours than I did when I worked a 9 to 5, but it feels like a lot less.
Oh yeah, I think that's what probably you were thinking, Oscar. Is it doesn't feel like you're working much.
No. And I suppose like, as you say, like, do you count like me watching a Champions League game and like scrolling Twitter and like, no, like that's because I would have done that regardless of whether I was making content or not. Like videos, like during the week, I don't feel like I've really had the burnout feeling. And maybe that's because I've like had seasons where haven't really had a season where I've been making content and not doing that well because of my ranks over the past few years. So it feels like I'm constantly like trying to plug away and like I'm motivated to play the game, like I'm motivated to make content as a result. But I haven't really felt the feeling that I know others talk about with it.
Do you ever just sit there and think, I get paid to make Ben Mee jokes?
There we go.
Ben Mee.
You managed to slip in the Ben Mee stuff.
Yeah.
By the way, I got so many questions and honestly, like almost hate comments about your Ben Mee jokes. Would you like to address that for anyone watching?
Ben Mee jokes. What, jokes about me? Or
oh no,
jokes about Ben?
Oh no, he's gone and actually dropped a Ben Mee joke in. I like the Chris Wood jokes more. We're not going to make those because I don't want to get demonetized.
No.
The Chris Wood jokes.
Didn't you lose followers the other day after you did one?
Yeah. Harry tweeted a Ben Mee joke and then like 10 seconds later in the
like
group chat was like, I've lost followers.
Yeah, I don't know. I think just the whole point of them is that they're not like funny and they are dreadful and they get worse and worse every time because they are exactly the same. Oh, Ben Mee did this. Oh no, wait. Oh wait, me did this. I did this. Me plays for Brentford. I play for Brentford. Oh wait, I'm at home. Ben Mee did this. It's exactly the same every time. And it's just going to be a little bit.
She tweeted the other day, it's a bad day to be able to read or something.
It's a terrible day to have the ability to read. Yeah, but hopefully, like he retires soon. But also, like Man United have got a player called Me.
Yeah.
So,
oh no,
it could be new
Harry's grown for
generation.
years.
I did think
You got
that
Me regen.
the day Ben Mee retires will be a sad, sad day.
And
that final post, me retired. But I'm sat at home.
Like, give him ideas.
I'm gonna do when people quit YouTube, they do it's over. I'm gonna do a whole sad one with me
over for
crying.
me.
Just put it's over for me.
Brilliant.
Imagine if like he replied or like came on your podcast or something.
Ben Mee on your podcast would be so good.
Do you know what? I was thinking about this the other day. I was wondering whether Ben Mee likes the jokes. Not necessarily from me, because I doubt he sees my jokes, but he must be aware
He's probably so bored of
that
them.
people make me-related jokes. And he must be so bored of it.
He probably was done by it by the time he finished school.
Yeah.
Let alone
I bet
now.
he got it at school, yeah. So I doubt he'll ever want to come on a podcast. But Ben, if you are watching and want to come on a podcast with me, then
Worth a
let me
go.
know, yeah.
Oh dear. Right. Back to my serious answer to this question about maintaining that balance. So I am in a slightly unique position. I do YouTube content. I've obviously got this podcast. I live in Nottingham, by the way, and this podcast shoot is in London. So I have every Monday now. I leave at like 7, get back at like midnight. I do all of the editing and
It's
stuff.
a hard life.
It is a
I
hard
don't know how
life.
you're not
Yeah.
burnt out.
But on
the
top
subject
of that,
burnout.
yeah, I'm also a lecturer and I'm also doing a PhD. So yeah, I honestly sometimes do like 100-hour weeks, but that's not all obviously FPL. So I do have to do a lot more. Something that's really helped is just like prioritizing things in life. And I think this is really important for people is if you do have various things, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're doing this and that, and you've got a family and you want to keep up fitness, like you can't be everything to everyone all at once. And I think that's such a key important thing. I was starting to feel burnt out because I was trying to be perfect at the gym, always eating well, always getting my YouTube videos out on time, making sure and you just can't. So I think you just have to sit back and count what you're doing in life and just say, this takes priority at the moment. Yeah. So for me, it's like being a good partner, being nice to my family, and also FPL on YouTube. And I made that commitment that YouTube takes the priority. Yeah. And that was a big shift. And I accepted that I might be slightly delayed on this part of my PhD, or I might not be able to go to the gym every day. And I think that helps for me. But hopefully I'll get to a point where you two slackers are out, where it's my full-time job. And that'll be nice and easy for me. Harry, what pressures and challenges do you face as an FPL content creator outside of obviously just getting it all done? What do you think of what are the negatives of the job? Because we've just said it's such a good job in general.
Yeah, it is great. I think the big thing is at the start of it is the people around you like understanding it, because my schedule is very different, right? Yep. So like weekends for most people are great, and that's the time off work. But actually, weekends are equally as busy for me as, like, to be honest, like Tuesdays and Thursdays are my quietest days. Like Saturday morning, like I basically have to stream unless it's a Friday night deadline, and like the thought of missing a stream, like I hate it, and I hate missing uploads as well. And then a Sunday evening, like to do my transfer plans video, Whereas most people want to have that time off, like go away for the weekend and stuff, which I do. Like I often take my stuff away with me. And actually Holly is fantastic at planning weekends and stuff with that in mind. But that's, I think the big difference is like, it's like Monday to Sunday. Like I'm always thinking about it. I think that's the difference to what I had before. And that's, you're then asking people whose job it's not to then like deal with that and accept that as well.
Do you struggle to explain to people that I'm a YouTuber?
I'm very lucky. I met my partner through YouTube. She was in my live stream chat and she loves football. So like there's sometimes when I've just had a bad week and she's there sat there watching a game that I don't own a player in. So it's almost the opposite for me. But yeah, like I feel like it's got a lot better. I was actually speaking to Chunks about this on the podcast, but before when you said I'm a YouTuber, not embarrassing as such, but you almost would say like, I'll make videos or you try and like skirt around it. Right? I'd say I'm a YouTuber. I make YouTubers and I'm kind of quite proud of that. And I'm glad that change has developed because like young kids now want to be YouTubers. And I think even 5 years ago, there's not stigma attached with it, but it's people assume you just don't put in any work. You just sit there and record it. People still probably assume that. But
when I did my insurance claim the other day, that they were like, "What's your job?" And I was like, "YouTuber. I make videos." And he was like, "I don't have a category on my list."
Oh, that's sad.
When people ask you, they go, "All right, what do you make videos on?" Then what do you reply?
I say football.
I just say football. Yeah, football.
I've tried fantasy football and they're like, what's that? And then as I'm midway through the explanation, I'm like, I sound like such a nerd. I move little players around a screen. Yeah. Fantasy football is not the easiest thing to explain. And even afterwards, then people just stare at you blankly. Our producer actually that's producing this right now, she's not into FPL, but I think by the end of this, she's going to be an expert. She's going to play next season, probably beat us in her first season. Anything else, pressures and challenges, Oscar? Other than just other people understanding your sort of schedule?
Not really. I have to be careful to save up during the year because once the season ends, like, you don't get anything.
That's actually a really good point. It's not consistent income.
No,
right?
not
that
consistent.
Is another very interesting
Wildly
point.
Inconsistent.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got like 50 things that are pressures and challenges. But do you not think that the thing that's different about FPL YouTube is the first thing that's great is there are consistent views every single week because people are playing throughout the season, right? That's nice. Like sometimes if you're a YouTuber on a different topic, you'll make a video and it will just completely fail. Our fail or flop videos are still very consistent, our views, because it's around a thing that people want to tune into. But the big challenge is that it's performance-based. I was sat there trying to think of other sports or games or any topic on YouTube where the topic that you make videos around is so performance-based. Like if you do badly, people largely will stop watching. Because even if you play golf and you have a bad game, people love it. It's entertaining. You play FIFA, most of the FIFA YouTube is probably not particularly good at the game. Sometimes they're just entertaining. And whilst I think people would watch us for the entertainment, there is, and we know this, there's a notable drop-off if you're having a bit of a stinker. My views when I was 3.8 million that week, they dropped off. And I think all three of us, when we really rose up, it was due to a really good spell in rank. So do you not find that a pressure, the fact that your performance is tied to your views slightly? Harry, I'll start with you because obviously you're consistently good, but
I probably feel it slightly more because I feel like
your USP is how good you are.
Yeah, like the ranks is trying what I sort of sell myself on, and if you watch my videos, you get bombarded with it, particularly at the start of the season. So yeah, like I feel it a little bit, but then like at the end of the day, we are trying to predict the future a little bit with FPL. And if as long as you're making good decisions, and it's a bit like how do you do your best to not let an FPL weekend impact your weekend and not make it you sad as a result. It's at the end of the day, as long as you've made good decisions, if you look back on it and think, well, I made a bad decision and I got a bad week, then like fair enough. Like you have made a bad decision that's had a bad outcome. But A, it's a game at the end of the day. And then B, like as long as you're putting a good decision in and a decision you're happy making, then like that's the most important thing, I think.
Something I really need to do better, and I'm trying more, is also realizing the insignificance of 1 week. So I've scored 24 points twice this season, which was a 9.5 and 10.1 million game week rank. And I'm still about 1 million, which isn't a good rank, by the way. It's okay. But 1 week can feel so bad at the time when you have that stinker. And then a few weeks later, you're back where you started. And you have to accept that even the people that win FPL will never have a good game week every single game week. It's impossible. We spoke about that. What is the number? You have to get like 1.8 million game week rank every week to win the game or something like that. You don't even have to do well every week. You just consistently.
It's something like 65 points a week, isn't it?
Yeah.
How many points wins your FPL nowadays? Like 2,700?
Depends on the double.
But it's also like the game week rank. You don't even have to rank inside the top 1.
2,700 divided by 38? 71 points
Yeah.
a week.
But
chips.
That's quite a lot, actually.
But you have to remember, no, but
Yeah, hang on.
actually, but in some weeks you'll score 140, 150. There've been in a normal
true.
season you'll get
That's
3 or 4 points. So you're allowed a couple of. You've just ruined my point. No, but you are allowed to have a couple of off weeks, and I think that also helps with the pressures. It's just knowing, do you know what, I've had a bad week, and also as long as you're not consistently bad, it's quite entertaining. We've noticed if you have a real bad game week, people are obviously excited to go and laugh at you. So
I think I don't know how much like the watchers would care about all this, but I think there's probably like a 90% core audience on any channel that will tune in every week regardless. And there might be that 10% peripheral that might come and go like, oh, he's had a bad week. I'm not bothered in what he's posting this week.
Yeah.
So generally, I think people can mostly just separate that like good content from how they got on or are getting on.
Cool. Let us know in the comments, as well as liking and subscribing and also rating 5-star on audio. Let us know in the comments, would you still watch if we were all ranked 5 million? just honestly, if we were still giving the same advice, we were still doing the same videos, would you all watch if we were all ranked consistently every season?
I don't think we want to know the answer.
You can honestly say no, it would be quite funny. Cool. Final question then, and I think we'll all have different experiences with this, but as all of you guys are very well known and popular within the social media FPL community, to some extent even say famous, I like that. How does this popularity affect your life outside of FPL, positive and negative ways maybe? Harry? How does it feel being famous? For the Ben Mee jokes.
I don't.
Okay, so firstly, do you get recognised, and how does that feel? Because obviously people won't.
Yeah,
it does happen.
I think the first thing to say is I don't feel famous. Like just to clarify that before I answer the question.
I was going to clip this out of context and make it sound like you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Ben Mee is famous though.
Ben Mee is.
Sorry, couldn't help myself. I mean, it happens occasionally. I go to a lot of football, so I suppose that's a situation that it's slightly more likely to happen because you're in a situation where loads of people play FPL as well.
Do you remember when me and you went to that? Was it Soccer Aid?
Yeah.
And someone went, FPL Harry, and then you're like, all right, how you doing? And then he went, oh, Alan Focal.
At least he did recognise. Yeah. Just didn't ask you to take the picture instead.
I mean, it probably happens like once a month, maybe. I mean, it is a really nice feeling. Like this thought that someone's watched your content and then has enjoyed it, and like when people come up to you and recognize you, that they're often positive as a result, and that's great. It doesn't impact my life at all outside of YouTube. So no, it doesn't impact me at all. If it happens, like it's really nice. But I don't have more to add.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it is nice at the level we're at where it just happens occasionally. Like even I think the most it's happened to me in a day is like 4 times, and even that is still occasional. It's not like you're getting like bombarded from every angle.
Was that when you asked ITV to put you on telly for the football?
I got so many messages from that. It is different with me. I've said this before, but someone said I look like a Guess Who character because I've got beard, glasses, hat, bald head.
You're very recognisable.
Yeah, like it's impossible to not recognise who I am. I was saying I went out for my girlfriend's birthday in Birmingham. We were at a Spoons. I was absolutely pissed at like midnight, and someone came over to me. That's the only time when it's like you're acting like yourself, and then you get recognised, and then you're sort of like scanning around the room. Like you realise you can't act like a complete prat in public like I used to. Well, I still do, but it's slightly a little bit more awkward. But as you say, you never get someone to come up to you and goes, I hate your tweets and content. Like if someone comes up to you in real life, it's always a positive, well, largely a positive interaction. What about you, Oscar?
By the way, I've got an FPL memes folder on my computer. One of them is just you at that game.
I honestly can't believe that situation.
Yeah. No, I mean, to be fair, I don't get out much nowadays. Like I've only been recognised a few times, but yeah, a few. It's really cool, like Harry said, when it happens. One time I was in a stag do in Barcelona, and like a waiter recognized me. Another time I was in Amsterdam in a nightclub, and someone came over while I was dancing.
You get something about your demographic.
Yeah, I know, it's a bit strange. Actually, I don't know. The last one was Glastonbury.
Everyone's always got loads of alcohol.
I was hammered all 3 times.
Brilliant. Okay,
next stag do will be one of us will get recognised.
Oh yeah,
Harry Stag.
Harry Stag. That's going to be.
I have to get a video of Harry.
Oh no! Honestly, every time I go out, I'm really bad when I'm drunk as well. My clothes start coming off.
We're getting videos of this.
It's going to be.
That's going to be the new meme template on Twitter.
Should we live stream for stag do?
I'm going to get a video of Harry drunk talking to like a waiter. It's like, I've got 5 top 5k finishes.
Do you want to see my FPL team?
Is FPL mentioned in your vows?
I haven't written them yet.
No, okay. Please slip it in somewhere. Slip your rank into your vows, and that will go down in history.
I'll put Ben Mee. Are you marrying me or me?
Oh my God, imagine Ben Mee being at the wedding.
God.
I'll send a message. I'll try my
worth a
best.
try.
Okay. So as you guys will probably know by now, FPL Therapy is partnered with Club, and I've been very nicely building my club up over recent weeks. You can see my club here, and each week we basically ask the guest to meet with our agent, which is Manny, and try and pull us the highest rated player they can, and then basically put them on a leaderboard. And today we have the luckiest person of all time, FPL Harry. So yeah, Harry's going to basically go through the players, and he's going to basically try and pull us a highly rated player that preferably will get into my starting 11. My midfield is currently very weak. So if you can use some of that good luck to get me a midfielder, that would be absolutely perfect. Okay. So I'm going to pass the phone to you now. All you have to do is just click the meet now and then tell me the player that you managed to pull.
Come on, Chris Wood.
As if.
Oh,
is it good?
The chances. It is an FPL relevant player.
Okay. Are they good?
Rodrigo Muniz.
Oh my God, this man trolled me so much. I owned him for Leicester and Ipswich and he blanked in both games.
That's still raw for Ross.
That is more than raw. That is absolutely
relevant because I picked Chris Wood over him in game week 1.
There we go.
That's too soon.
Yeah,
it's too soon. Okay, so do you know what? I'm actually just going to reject him. That's how I feel about your Muniz pick. I've got Jimenez actually in my club as well. But if you do want to get involved and build your own club and see if you can beat me as well, there'll be a link down below in the description. Start your club journey there. Also, if you are based in Ireland or Scandinavia and you're on Android, the game is actually live right now. So there'll be a link down below to the description, in the description for those in that very unique group there. And yeah, just keep an eye out. It's going to be launched very, very soon in other countries too. And yeah, check it out and let me know if you do download the game. So that was some more general questions. Let's move on to some sort of Game Week 12 specific, if people are still listening at this stage, some more Game Week 12 specific questions. And I thought we'd sort of base this around a wildcard draft because it's rightly so a very popular week. If you even remotely need it this week, it feels good. There are so many fixture swings for the likes of Brighton, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Chelsea. Their fixtures start to improve. And then some other teams, for example, Nottingham Forest, they do have Ipswich in 13, but they start to tail off a little bit. And yeah, a few players that we might own that we might want to start potentially moving on. Maybe Man City assets are another good example. So I've built a wildcard draft. I'm then going to show the lads and they're going to essentially roast it and basically say where they would improve it and change it. So this has 1.1 million in the bank, by the way, and I don't have great team value. So there is space if you wanted to upgrade a position to do so. In goal, I've got Verbruggen and Fabianski. You could definitely go for Sanchez. You could go for Raya if you wanted to, but Verbruggen's fixtures are great. Yep. He makes a lot of saves and Fabianski's playing at the moment, so that feels okay. The back line is Gabriel, Konate, so they're your sort of 2 more expensive players, and then 3 cheapies with Ait-Nouri, Lewis, Hall, and Colwill. So there's actually no 4 million defender here, but all 5 of these should be pretty happy starting, even in Game Week 12. Then the midfield 5 is very template and very basic, but it's Salah, Palmer, Saka, Mbeumo, and Rodgers. So 3 premiums being Salah, Palmer, Saka. You could, again, upgrade Rodgers if you wanted to go for a Semenyo or a 6 million plus player. And then the front line is Isak, Cunha, and João Pedro. So I'll turn it to you in case you need to remind yourselves.
Yeah, I was looking at it.
Yeah, so
okay.
What do you think in terms of this wildcard draft? What do you like? What would you change? Who are some of the players that you might want to target, if not?
I think most of the team picks itself.
Most of the team ticks itself, yeah.
Most of the team ticks itself.
Which players do you think are like locked in no-brainers in a wildcard?
So I did a wildcard video this morning.
Okay.
And
you plug your content, yeah, cheeky little plug for your content.
I also did a video.
Are you just playing?
Welcome back for another video. Mine was like almost identical to that, basically.
Okay. Where did it differ?
I had Semenyo over Rodgers. I had Raya in goal. This might just be the team value thing, though. Other than that, almost identical.
So this has 1.1 in the bank. So I think I couldn't quite get there, but I could at least do the Raya move potentially.
Could do one of the 2.
Yeah. It's the same other than that. And I'd dunk over Ait-Nouri.
Okay.
Because Konate's got City in 13, so I thought you start dunk for Southampton home. Like Ait-Nouri's great, to be fair.
Yeah.
I'd go dunk over Colwill. Like, even as a Chelsea fan, like, I watch us defend, and although we're quite entertaining to watch at times, defending is not our strong point at the moment. So Colwill I probably wouldn't have in. And then the big thing is, because you asked to talk about the draft, and I think it's Isak or Fernandes.
Yep.
And you have to pick one of the 2. I think Salah, Palmer, Saka, and then Mbeumo for now, Cunha, and probably João Pedro now are fairly going to be popular. Like, Konate is one I want to have. Gabriel. So yeah, it's just Isak versus Fernandes. So it's Fernandes in midfield and a cheaper forward, or the other way around.
I think I prefer Isak to Fernandes. And I say this as a Bruno fan and a Man United fan. I prefer Isak to Fernandes, but I probably do prefer the forwards to Rodgers. So, which is the concern, I guess.
Isak and Rodgers versus like Fernandes. And my team, it would be Chris Wood.
Or Welbeck even. You could even double up on the Brighton attack.
or like Visa, or you can go for someone else coming into nice fixtures as well. So that's the only real decision I think.
Which way would you lean at the moment, Harry? Isak or Bruno? Do you think you'd go for?
Well, I have the decision to make this week in my team. I'm currently leaning Fernandes because I like the cheap forwards quite a lot. And I've got value tied up in Wood, so maybe that sways me a little bit. But Fernandes' fixtures are okay. There are some more difficult away games in there. Like Isak is looking pretty nice as well, though. But then they've been mixed. So I think I'd probably go Fernandes because I like the forwards.
I think it's just that fixture. I feel like you've missed the best fixture. I know Ipswich are the worst attack defense in the league, but it's the Leicester at home felt like the banker. And then Everton are very hit or miss. Like that's probably an easy game, but you don't know. And then it's Arsenal away, Forest at home, City away, Bournemouth at home.
Don't they have Ipswich?
Ipswich away next week. Yeah, sorry. But after the Ipswich and Everton games, it's Arsenal, Forest, City, Bournemouth. Yeah. They then have Wolves, which is great. Then Newcastle and Liverpool. I don't really think they're good fixtures.
That was where I struggled because Mbumo's fixtures also turn after 2 weeks. So I didn't feel right about having both of them. And then you kind of Isak as well.
This was going to be my next question is, could Mbumo be the sacrifice? I know he's got Everton and Leicester in the next two, and he's brilliant. And all the things stand that we said about him, he is playing very wide. And his XG this season has dropped off slightly. He's a lot more creative. Wissa is the one that's getting all of those big chances. Is there any world in which you would be tempted to move away from an Mbumo, or is that just overthinking it?
No, I think it's overthinking.
What about if you don't?
There's no way I'm getting rid of him.
What if you didn't have the money tied up in him and he's now like 7.9 mil? If you're buying a fresh Mbumo or Fernandes, is that more of a discussion, do you think? Yes. Or do you still think it's Mbumo?
Is he 7.9 now?
I think he's gone up to that, hasn't he? Or am I?
He's up to 7.9. If you're buying fresh, I think I'd buy Fernandes.
It's close though, because then even after that, Brentford's are still pretty good.
Yeah, so after the next two, Brentford, Villa,
pretty
Newcastle,
good, a bit generous, but
Chelsea.
better than Man United's is what I'm saying in comparison.
I think if you've got him and you've got money tied up, you definitely keep. I think if you were buying fresh, I'd be extremely tempted by Fernandes if you could afford the extra 0.4 or whatever it is to buy him.
Yeah.
Other thoughts around it? João Pedro, Welbeck. Do you think João Pedro is just too good value at 5.4?
Oh, this is it, and this is part of the reason in my team. Like, I'm not certain I'm going to buy Isak, is because I just look at João Pedro at 5.4, and I'm like, well, is Isak actually going to even outscore João Pedro? And for 3 million more.
Yeah, that's true.
And like the minutes is the big thing. And if I'm not certain on the minutes for João Pedro, then yeah, fine. I will go and buy Isak and just go for the minutes and the nailedness that I'm going to get over the next few weeks. But if I think João Pedro will start the same number of games as Isak, then it feels like a no-brainer because he's so much cheaper and is so good. And
I don't think
he'll
he'll start as many. I reckon he misses at least one over that run, especially December, like this 6 game weeks in like 23 days.
Yeah.
I feel like there's no way. It would start most, but
they've got so many good options, haven't they? Like Welbeck's been brilliant. Reuter has been so good, and he can play as the 9 or the 10. Ferguson.
Yeah.
And
but he is versatile. Well. He can play a couple of positions.
It's João Pedro versus Reuter, though. And like you just saw at the weekend, he's just the better player by such a margin. And every manager at Brighton just says how good João Pedro is and how much they need him and how he's their best player.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe if he's not fully fit, then it's those games where they play weekend, midweek. But
don't get me wrong, I had him on my wildcard draft. I just don't think he'll start every single game.
But again, you might not need him to, especially if he's rotating with the Rodgers. Right. Yeah, it's just you can hopefully he starts in the weeks where you want to start him. But if there does become, and it's probably unlikely, I think with Hurts, but if there becomes a pattern, great, because you're like, oh, he's played 290s in a row. Maybe he's not going to play this one. Okay, so I think we largely agree Saka, Palmer, Haaland would be the 3 premiums.
No.
Saka,
Palmer,
sorry,
Salah.
That was a Freudian slip there. Saka, Palmer, Salah would be the 3 premiums. We would probably have one Arsenal defender. We'd probably have one of Isak or Bruno. João Pedro looks like good value. Cunha would be in there. And then if you can just fill in the cheap defenders based on who rotates well, who you've got a feeling about, and also those last couple of positions.
Just a question. I know you've gone Verbruggen in goal, but we spoke about Dunk. Would you go Dunk over Kadioglu? So Kadioglu missed the City game because of a knock, but it's been pretty good before then. Has been playing more advanced, which he probably won't do.
I don't know with players that are versatile if it's a strength or a limitation. Like I like that Kadioglu can play left back or right back, but I also don't like that. Because if he was just like a brilliant left back, you just have to play him at left back. But he can play left back, right back, he can play on the wing.
He's been playing on the wing.
Yeah. So
I just don't think he starts every game, especially when they've got options like Minte coming back.
But then when he is that versatile, could he start every game? Especially if they do start picking up more injuries. Like
I'm not convinced. It just feels a bit risky. Like he's really high upside pick. Like if he does start every game, but I'm not convinced that he does. So that's why I went for Dunk.
Okay.
Because he's got options like Veltman right back, Stupinian left back, and so on. So there's competition everywhere. So I wasn't sold on him enough to have him in my wildcard.
Yeah.
So I went Dunk. Obviously, Dunk's flagged, but if he's out, I'd still go Van Heck over Kadioglu.
I saw also a few questions like, is this the time to now go double Arsenal defence? Everyone's put off. The data has dropped off a bit, but they've got such a nice fixture. And Oscar, you're an Arsenal fan.
Yeah.
How do you feel about now, if you were wildcarding, going for a Gabriel and a Raya? Like doubling up on them?
Well, it might be delusion, but I had both of them on the wildcard draft.
Okay, you did, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The fixtures are finally turning. Like, they've conceded 11. You know, they haven't kept a clean sheet for 7 in a row now. I was looking at the data earlier, and they had about 6 XGC, but conceded 11. So they've been a bit unlucky. But also, they've had 2 red cards over that run. So I still think that the Arsenal's defence is good value, and the fixtures are finally turning. So I just think it's the complete wrong time to turn our back on them. Yeah. I think they'll come good. Would you agree, Harry?
Yeah, like I see their prices dropping, and I'm like, absolutely, feel free to go and sell them, because I'm keeping double and I'm keeping them for the long term. The only one is Raya. Like, Gabriel is an absolute lock. I don't know how we've gone from game week 5, where he'd had 5 returns in 5 weeks, he'd scored twice, kept 3 clean sheets, and he was the most essential defender in the game, to now him being a cash cow to afford other players. All it takes is him suddenly to score again and get a clean sheet, and he'll be back on the menu. And with their fixtures coming up, Raya as well, if you've got him, now is not the time to go selling him. As you say, like, even they've been conceding, but their data is still really impressive. So yeah, no chance I'm getting rid of them.
And if you look at the fixtures, right, the first 5 are rough. Wolves was good and they kept a clean sheet, but then Villa, Brighton, Spurs, City are all attacks that are really solid attacks. Leicester have scored in every game apart from the Man United one, in which they really should have scored. So they're not a weak attack by any means. And they also got very lucky with the 2 goals. I think they only accumulated like 0.3 XG in that game. Southampton was the annoying, frustrating one, because they're not a particularly attacking team. But then it was Bournemouth, Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea. Now, they've really played all of the best attacks in the league. Not only the best teams, but the best attacks. So I do think the fact that they're still sat like 5th, 6th for expected goals conceded in the league after that run of fixtures with injuries, I don't think you need a double up. I wouldn't have a double up, but I would think you're crazy to go without Gabriel. I really do think he's still the best value premium defender for me.
Well, you sold Raya, didn't you?
I did sell Raya, but
that was for Sanchez.
It was for Sanchez to also afford Salah. Right. And I wouldn't have sold Raya. Like, I don't get selling Raya for the sake of selling Raya.
Yeah.
I do still maintain that unless they are going to be quite weak defensively, Raya just doesn't get the saves. And I know he has on a few occasions this season, but I think that's game state dependent. I just don't think Raya makes the saves to make him worthwhile as an asset.
What are you going to do when Sanchez gets dropped?
Play Fabianski, the GOAT. Okay. No, I did worry about that. But before I made the decision, I literally checked with I put out like 4 tweets and everyone was like, no, he's never going to get dropped. Sanchez is number 1.
Is that a possibility?
Maresca loves Sanchez, but
I'd be surprised
stinky.
Because
hasn't Jorgensen been quite bad as well? Though?
Yeah, like Jorgensen's not been particularly much better, and like he's been hardly tested because he just plays Conference League football. So I don't think it will happen. It was more as a little dig. I think he's more at risk than most keepers in the league.
Oh, yeah.
But that's because most keepers in the league are not at risk at all. So he's probably in the top 5 biggest risks you can buy as a keeper. But the fixtures are there. Like, it's fine. He probably should keep his place.
Yeah, I think they've got Leicester and Southampton obviously in the next 3. Yeah. If worst case he does get dropped, hopefully it's after the next few, and then I just have to suck it up and just use a transfer on him. Cool. Some other questions we had then around Game Week 12 and obviously in relation to Wildcard and stuff like that as well. Is Rico Lewis a must-sell this week, given his minutes are less secure and Man City can't keep clean sheets? And if so, who are your favourite placements? Do we all own Rico Lewis?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start with you then, Harry, because you've got Gvardiol and Lewis. But Harry, what are you thinking on Rico Lewis at the moment?
Yeah, I am going to be selling him at some point. Not liking City defensively. Every week is a different defence. We don't know if he's nailed. The attacking threat we thought was there just isn't really.
For how far up the pitch he is, he doesn't actually do much attacking, does he? He just almost stands there as a decoy a lot of the time.
Yeah, and they don't keep any clean sheets. I don't think there's ones over the next few weeks that I particularly back a clean sheet from them either. So yes, I plan on selling him. If you want to bench him, then that's fine. Like if you want to give him one more week and you like a defender from the week after, fine. Like you don't have to sell him going into 12, but he's almost certain that he's going to go, and Kanate is number 1 pick for me.
Cool. What about you, Oscar? Are you going to sell him? And if so, who are your favourite placements?
Yeah, I think because now Walker's back as well, that's just the concern. He just feels way less reliable. Like he might favour Walker's pace against Spurs after the break. It's hard to say. So I think it's okay to sell him. I don't think he's an absolute must. I might be forced to play him because there's another move I'm making. But yeah, I think Hall, Colwill would probably be 2 options I'd look at. Like I said, I like Dunk, but it depends if he's back. But he does have Bournemouth away, so it's not as great, that fixture.
I fully believe as well that and I don't know this, but I fully believe if Akanji and Ake were both fit, Lewis wouldn't have started that game. I think we saw it from a mile off. Matoma, they play Walker. Like, you can't play Lewis against Matoma. And Gvardiol was having to sit a bit deeper just to get Lewis into the game. I can almost guarantee it would have been Gvardiol at left back and Akanji and Ake as the centre backs.
So do you think Lewis plays against Spurs?
No.
Against Son?
No, exactly.
Oh,
This is and again, unless they do have,
Unless they play both.
Yeah, exactly. But I just don't want him. The upside is, it's not even like you're selling a player that you feel like the upside is there to go and get you a 15 points. Like I say, like he's got 0.14 XGI per 90 for where he's playing on the pitch. Like Sepp Vandenberg's got 0.11. I just looked like he's not even much more attacking than some of these players that are playing as like a traditional right back. So yeah, for me, I'm probably looking at Lewis Hall just because of the price, and I'm like, if I do somehow maintain Haaland and Salah, I need to free up some funds. Like Dibbling's just sat there in my team as a disaster.
Yeah.
Like I can't really afford to go out there and get an expensive player. So I'm looking at Lewis Hall. A little bit knee-jerky from his double assist. I do still like Kirkes. He's getting good minutes. Bournemouth are a decent enough defence. But yeah, Lewis Hall, I've spoken to a few Newcastle fans. They're very sure that he's as nailed as you can get in that defence.
I remember when I came on for your first episode of FPL Therapy and I did the differentials.
You had Lewis Hall.
I went Hall, yeah. I think he got an assist.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? And they
conceded or something like that.
What did he get booked? I think he got like a 5 point.
Got 5 points.
Yeah. They I really do like him. And he from the first 2 or 3 games, he was awful, Lewis Hall, like really bad. But since then, he's improved.
It was when Shah got sent off. It just ruined him as a pick early on because they went with Kelly, who's better defensively because they needed cover.
That is my only concern. They do have Kelly sat on the bench who can cover if Lewis Hall needs a rest, but he doesn't look like he needs to. Brilliant creativity. He's actually 3rd for baseline bonus out of all defenders as well. So he's good for bonus points too. Cool. Well, I was going to say, if you could buy one defender for 4.5 or below this week, who would it be? Is it Lewis Hall for you, Harry, or do you think there's including 4.5? So ignoring 4.5. Like 8 Nuri.
I mean, I might go Dunk because I like their fixtures and I probably like them slightly more as defense. But Lewis Hall's got to be up there. It's one of those two, probably.
So Duncan Hall as well for you, Oscar?
I'm surprised you're not so keen on Chelsea defence, or almost like sucked the mic off then.
Have you watched...
Oscar's just deep throating the mic.
Have you watched us defend?
I've watched Chelsea. I thought you're not that bad defensively.
I like Cole
like, for 4.5 mil with the fixtures you've got. I think he's a sound pick.
We can't defend. No, we can't. Like, absolutely.
Not that bad.
I mean, we're not great. Like, we're good going forward, but I mean, let's see. With Caicedo and Lavia, like Caicedo turning into the best defensive midfielder in the league, he seems to want to at the moment. Maybe we get a little bit better, and the fixtures are there. Like Colwell would be my pick of the Chelsea defenders.
Yeah. Like Fofana, I think same price, but
he's an absolute nutcase. He's going to get sent off soon.
Yeah, it's just his injury record as well. And like Cole's left-footed, so I don't know.
Maresca was out praising him after the game at the weekend, though. So I think both of them will play most of the games. Okay. I wouldn't touch the fullbacks because we've seen them chop and change. I tend to be quite a pessimistic fan. Like I avoid our players because I've got enough stress watching us play every week, and I don't want to have trying to cheer on a clean sheet on top of that. So yeah, I probably wouldn't. Like I get it with the fixtures, but
cool. Oscar, is there any justification to go without Salah and to have Haaland instead? Is there any world in which you think just, let's say even keeping Haaland and just ignoring Salah and continuing to give Haaland the armband and trust him as your main premium? Like, is there any world in which you think that makes sense?
I think, honestly, in isolation, Haaland home to Spurs and Salah away to Southampton is not that much different. So it really depends on like how flexible you are. Like, say you've only got one transfer. I don't think it's that bad to just keep Haaland, and then they play each other, so maybe you keep 2 weeks. I think there's a world where they do similarly over the next 2, but I don't know. It goes a long way, that money, that's the thing. Like,
what about you, Harry?
I mean, I think that money does go quite a long way. Plus, the cheap forwards are better than the cheap midfielders. So, I mean, it's easy to say because I've sold him and it's gone well for the past 2 weeks. But especially if it gives you more than one of Saka and Palmer, which it does for quite a lot of people. Like, a lot of people can sell Haaland and go Salah in and maybe Saka as well. In that situation, I feel like it's a move. If it is in isolation, it is closer because Spurs this week, if Dragishin is playing again, then Haaland is an incredible option. But Romero's back. Hopefully Van de Ven might be back for it as a non-Haaland owner. But so at what point is City gonna turn the corner? And 1 goal doesn't feel enough from him anymore.
No.
Like, you need 2 in a game. Like, if Haaland scores 1, I would take that every week now, not having him. pretty much.
Yeah, 15.3 mil. You need multiple.
He was averaging
goals.
a brace money the opening 5
And that's
game weeks.
great.
Don't I know it?
And that's worth 15 mil.
Exactly,
That
yeah.
is, yeah. But I mean, I think the international break as well has come at the perfect time for City.
But
So they can have the
Salah's
likes of De Bruyne, like, you know, getting back to full fitness, and other players that have been out.
That is the justification. Also, I would say the justification is the amount of chances Haaland is getting. It's not like he's just like Solanke of previous weeks where you're like, Haaland's not even shooting, because there were a couple of games in a row where he just wasn't even taking the shots, and that's worrying to me. When Haaland's like accumulating 0.4 XG in a game, I'm worried. I did tweet out this morning, in the past 3 weeks, Haaland has 4.77 XGI and 13 points. Salah has 2.16 and 33 points. So I know that doesn't tell the full story, but 2.5 more XGI for 20 less points.
It's Wood versus Calvert-Lewin all over again.
Yeah,
Isn't
it really is. Like it doesn't deserve that swing. You could say
What a guy.
that Salah.
What a guy.
Hate Chris Wood. You could say that Salah has been a marginally better asset and that you predicted that would happen, but 20-point swing. When you take into account captaincy, that's a 40-point swing.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem fair to me, I don't think.
Just on that though, I suppose there are a couple of things to caveat. First of all, is the XG for Haaland at the weekend is wrong.
It added an extra like
That's wrong.
0.6, yeah.
It's because
He had a double chance.
the double chance.
Because he missed it.
Because he missed the first chance, the second chance. He accumulated 1.3 XG
The
from the
Verbruggen
goal.
save. Oh, okay.
From the goal. So that technically can't happen, but because the chances were far enough apart, they didn't like.
Well, the ball was like a few inches off the line when he followed it up. So that's got to be like 0.9.
Well, exactly.
XG.
And the other thing is Salah's goals are worth more than Haaland's. Haaland scored at the weekend. Yes, he got booked, but he ends up with a 5-pointer. Every Salah goal this season is pretty much worth 8. That's the big difference. Like he scores, he's getting an 8-point for a goal, which is almost the same as what Haaland gets for a brace. It's those bonus that Salah is mopping up.
I can't believe how the tables have turned. I'm sat here defending Haaland on this podcast after him. I almost feel like vindicated that what I thought at the start of the season is true, that probably a no Haaland draft is best.
Justice for Raptor.
Justice for, and it didn't go very well for me. Yeah, exactly.
What's interesting as well, you guys have seen Rob T FPL. He makes really good graphics, and he did one using the market's rest of season projections to basically like convert that to the projected points for the entire rest of the season. And before Game Week 11, Haaland and Salah were both on 100 projected points for the entire rest of the season. Okay. It was something like 100.9 versus 100.
Does that include bonus? Was that just off pure goal output?
Might just be pure. So it could even be more of a swing. But the point is, they're like 2.5 mil difference, but expected to do roughly the same for the rest of the season. So that's also the case for Salah over Haaland.
I think so. I basically think if you've got the transfers to get Salah in for Haaland, I think you get it done. I think it doesn't matter if it's this week, next week. I just think that is a move because of everything else. But in isolation, if you would say, who do you prefer, Haaland or Salah? I'm going to discuss in a second. I think Haaland is equally good this week, believe it or not, when you look at the fixture. So I'll chuck it to you, Oscar, then. For Game Week 12, as things stand, Salah against Southampton, Palmer against Leicester, Haaland against Spurs. If you are in a free hit, who do you think's the standout captain, or is there one?
Well, I've got Salah and Palmer, and at the moment, the armband's on Salah, Palmer vice, but I actually think it's really, really close. I see Palmer as a sort of flat track bully against these promoted teams. Like last season, he got it was like 12 points against Burnley. Then he got 14 against Burnley. He got like 18 against Luton. Double-digit haul against Sheffield United. So I really think Palmer's such a great option as well. And I might, going back to EO, just try and work out which one's going to be the lower, because I think that'd be an opportunity.
Palmer will definitely be lower.
This is kind of how I felt in. I felt that.
So maybe I'll go.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll
Going into Game Week 11, I knew. So at my rank, it was 103% for Salah and 106% for Haaland. I knew they were going to be close. So I went for the one that I thought would be lower owned amongst engaged managers, which was Haaland, and that backfired horribly. But I feel like if there's an opportunity where you think two captains are very close, if you want to protect, go for the more highly owned one. If you want to go for the more risky one, if you want to attack, go for that. That is sometimes how EO can be helpful. Yeah. By at least utilizing. I don't agree with differential captains for the sake of it, but if you do genuinely think that the two are 50-50, Palmer's not going to be as highly captained as Salah in a million years.
Not for the sake of it. They say you think two players are genuinely equally good for the game week in your opinion, then I think
go for the lowly owned.
By logic, you could go for the lower owned.
No.
Or if you want to protect, like if you're at Harry's rank, maybe you don't.
Yeah. Go for that more highly owned because then
true.
then again, over the weekend, I'm not stressing because I'll still
cheer both of them on. Yeah.
I can cheer both of them on, and I don't put myself in a position to get unlucky. The other thing is Palmer is away at the 12:30 kickoff. Yeah, that's not happening. Gandhi's law. He will win again.
Okay, so if we're ignoring EO and ignoring random myths,
Salah.
Salah, you're going. Okay, so I'm on Salah at the moment. I think it was on above average. I was listening to this morning. If I said one of the two gets 23 points, you wouldn't even have to ask me twice. I'd say it's Palmer.
Yeah.
I would immediately say Palmer's the one that got 20 plus points. I'm not saying Salah is as explosive as Palmer, but I'm not seeing Salah going out and getting 4 goals on a consistent. Like Palmer has that in his locker where he just goes nuclear.
Yeah.
So I feel like the ceiling for me, and equally, if I look at the teams, I'm going to regret saying this. I don't think Southampton have been that bad in the last few games. Like, I've been more impressed with them overall. Leicester, I feel like they're getting worse.
Who are you captaining?
I might captain Palmer. I'm tempted. At the moment, it's on Salah because I'm scared because he's just destroyed me. But I'm happy because I have Haaland, Palmer, Salah, and I'm probably not going to sell Haaland. I feel like if any of them go crazy, like Salah got the 14 pointer, I think I lost like 40,000 places overall because I have him at least. So I feel like the risk is reduced, as Oscar was saying. I feel like I can take that risk. But let us know in the comments who you plan on captaining. But yeah, I think it is a more difficult decision than people think. Harry had a question. You sort of did start to touch on this, but how much value should we be placing on 90-minute men with December and the Christmas period coming up? Is there any justification right now to be bringing in rotation risks if they still have high upside? Like, as we're approaching December, players like João Pedro, should we just avoid them and just play safe with the minutes coming up? Or do you think there is still that justification to take the risk?
I think generally 90-minute men are become more and more valuable as the season goes on, particularly because, when you get to those 2 games a week, that's primed for rotation. And the issue is you often get rotation in the fixture you want your players to play in. So I do think it's over-egged, though. I think the rotation is often less than we expect it to. Like, teams play 3 times a week all the time, and it's not particularly different at Christmas. So it doesn't put me off, particularly with someone like João Pedro, who if he plays 30, if he plays 60, 70, like he can still do the damage because of his price. But then it does impact it for more expensive players. So I'm not like, I would never now buy Foden. Now he's not been great, but also because the minutes are a concern. The same for De Bruyne, like Luis Diaz, like Gakpo, like these players, I'm absolutely just not going to go anywhere near unless there's more injuries in that Liverpool team. João Pedro is an interesting one because of the price. So he adds another element, but generally I would, go for the safer player.
Yeah, I think so. Cool. You're going to make us play really boring and safe, Harry. We're going to come away from this rolling up to 5 free transfers. Cool. Right. We do have a couple more questions, but we'll sort of link them in with our teams because I think they're directly relevant. So, Harry, will go through your team first. So, you've got 2 free transfers, 1.3 million in the bank, and in a very, very strong position. So, I'll just read out your team for those on audio. So, we've got Raya in goal, Nottingham Forest at home, and Gabriel. So, this is where the fixtures now start. Forest, for everything they've done well, and Chris Wood's brilliant, they've not been great in terms of creating lots of high-quality chances. This does feel like a pretty good chance for a clean sheet for me. The other 2 defenders, as things stand, Ait-Nouri and Lewis, with Mykolenko against Brentford at home on the bench. Your midfield 5 is Saka, Salah, Palmer, Mbeumo, Semenyo, which honestly does look like a wildcard midfield 5. And then your front line is Solanke against Man City, Cunha against Fulham, and then you've got Chris Wood on the bench.
Yes.
So where are you currently leaning in terms of plans? Are you just going to keep rolling for the rest of your life?
Poor Chris Wood, dropping to the bench.
I know the disrespect to Chris Wood.
Watch him wipe out my double Arsenal clean sheet.
Probably. And you'll somehow then get him subbed on for someone.
Yeah, who's not going to play? One of Palmer or Saka will actually be injured, and I'll get him off the bench. Yeah. Lovely stuff. So I've got a few things. I think Lewis to Konate I really like. For me, that's just such an upgrade. I want Konate for the long term. The Liverpool fixtures look great after. They've got Southampton, then it's a couple of difficult ones, and then it gets really nice again. I just want to get it in place and do that. But I then have a double move. I want to get rid of Solanke as well. I have exact money to do Lewis to Konate and Solanke to Isak with 2 frees. But the other thing is Solanke to João Pedro and Semenyo to Fernandes if I decide that Manchester United is where I want to go. And like asking the question of, who do I prefer, Isak or João Pedro? And it's really close and 1 to 3 million cheaper. I'm like, well, maybe I just go to João Pedro. So those are the 3 transfers. Lewis to Konate, Solanke to Isak, or Solanke to João Pedro, Semenyo to Fernandes. And I could even do the Konate move for -4 if I made the other 2 swaps.
If you do the Solanke to João Pedro, Semenyo to Bruno one, surely you just start Mykolenko as well over Lewis.
Yes. Well,
or didn't you?
I probably would in that sense, but then I've got Mbeumo. But it doesn't feel great there either. Like, I don't love my defense. And which is why, if I do that double switch, I'd probably take the hit. And I'd probably buy Konate away at Southampton and just get him in place.
Get ahead of it, yeah.
Because I know I'm going to do it at some point. So I just take the transfer next week and do it for a hit.
Not that you need my advice because you're much better than I am, but I wouldn't sell Semenyo. I think Semenyo is still great. I think he's at a lovely price, but I think the fixtures are brilliant. I'm looking at buying Semenyo soon. So selling Semenyo, especially for a player that, like I said, I don't like Bruno's fixtures. I just think Lewis to Canate and Solanke to Isak, if by the deadline you still have the money, and if you get priced out, just go for João Pedro and then just sit there with 3 mil in the bank.
Yeah.
I think you're in a really strong position there. I mean, is Bruno better than Semenyo? Yes, but I don't know. I want to take a -4, and I feel like the other 2 moves take priority for me personally. Cool. Nice team though. It genuinely, if I was to say what would a wild card be different, the 2 forwards that go with Cunha and then maybe 1 or 2 defenders, and then you're basically at a wild card.
Yeah, Chris Wood's an interesting one because I was actually having a look on some of the fixture tickers, and if I bench him for 12 and 14, between now and game week 20, they have the 4th best attacking fixture run. And I do plan on benching him for both of those games. It's Ipswich at home, United away, Villa at home after a Champions League game, Brentford away, Spurs at home, Everton, Wolves. Like, I might end up keeping him.
Please sell him. I can't deal with him scoring goals every week.
I mean, I'm definitely keeping him for Ipswich. And then after that, if we're suddenly seeing João Pedro start, then maybe I'll go for it. But then in game week 14 is midweek. So I'm not going to buy João Pedro for a midweek fixture, I don't think.
I might buy a Chris Wood against Ipswich just to avoid the pain. Like I don't know if I can deal going into game week 13 without Chris Wood.
Yeah.
That's going to be awful. Okay, cool. So Oscar, you've got 1 free transfer, but you've got 3.5 mil in the bank. Your team is Raya and Gabriel double up. You've currently starting both Gvardiol and Rico Lewis. Your midfield is Salah, Palmer, Mbeumo, Semenyo. So 4 of the same as Harry. And currently you have Johnson against Man City. And then your front line is, we're all Wolves with Strand Larsen and Cunha both starting and then Wood on the bench.
What was I thinking? The Wolves double up.
Against a really good defence in Fulham as well. But you've got 3.5 in the bank, which is exactly enough for a move, right?
Yeah, so the reason I did it, last week I went Haaland to Strand Larsen, Rodgers to Salah, and that's left me with exact money for Johnson to Saka.
Okay.
So that's my move. Like, I don't think there's anything nearly as good that I can do. I might be tempted to sell Lewis to, someone like Colwell for -4, but maybe not based on what Harry's been saying about the Chelsea defence.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, that's where I'm at. I mean, I think that would set me up really nice. The only thing I wouldn't like is Lewis. I could start Porro and just hope he gets an attack in return because I know he's going to start, whereas Lewis, not guaranteed, but there's no clean sheet there for Porro. So,
are you happy making a move that early? Like, let's say Saka looks like he's going to go up tonight. Are you happy making a move that early? Because it's close, isn't it?
Is he?
I
think people have started selling him after the flag.
Oh, well, hopefully it gives you some time. But let's say hypothetically that he does start to increase slightly, or Johnson looks like he's going to fall or something. Would you be tempted?
This was it. So he was rising, and then obviously he went off flagged, and he might be out of the England duty. So I was going to do that early, whenever that price rise was going to happen, which I never do. But I just feel like
it's too perfect of a move to not.
It's too perfect, Johnson to Saka. This is where Johnson scores and Saka blanks. But on paper, it just makes too much sense. So I will go early if he's close to a rise.
So this is my question then. I'll ask both of you. Is there not some temptation to keep Solanke and Johnson? Like, with the way City are defending, with the way that Spurs play, it's a game that should, like, City is so bad in transition. Like, that is where they're really, really poor. We saw that with Adama Traore absolutely skinning them repeatedly. Yeah. In transition, they're really bad. And their front three is really good in transition. I mean, Solanke's normally on the halfway line when that happens, but it does almost feel like a game that would suit that
it could be like a 3-2 to City sort of game, like, and the attackers still do fine. But it's team dependent, obviously. But in my case, Saka's just a clear upgrade on Johnson.
Yeah. If you were to make only the Semenyo and Lewis moves, would you just start Solanke, or do you think you'd have Chris Wood back in there?
I'd play Solanke over Chris Wood. Yeah. Away to City is better than away to Arsenal, I think.
Okay. Cool. Then just to finish up my team, needs a bit of work, but Sanchez in goal hopefully keeps his place. My back 3 at the moment is Gabriel, Aït-Nouri, and Vandenberg, which sucks because he's going to get benched surely soon. He keeps making mistakes.
Nice pass back at the weekend.
That was bad.
That was honestly dreadful. At the moment, I've got Rico Lewis and Leif Davis on the bench, who, in all honesty, aren't much better than Vandenberg, so might need a defender transfer. Midfield 4 is Salah, Palmer, Mbeumo, and Rodgers. Am I the only one with Rodgers out of the 2 of you?
Yeah, I sold him from Avadidi.
I sold him for Salah.
I understand the Salah one, not the Mavadidi one as much. No, but I really like Rodgers. Still, Crystal Palace at home. What I don't like in my team is I have to start Rodgers every week, so I need to move to a position where I can rotate Rodgers in and out. Because last week I was not expecting anything against Liverpool, and he was honestly pretty shocking. And that was what I deserved and expected to start him. So
Villa's fixtures are really nice for now as well.
Exactly.
Like,
So
I
I don't
wouldn't
wanna
mind
sell
if
him.
I still had him. I could have sold Semenyo. I felt like that was really close.
Do the minutes start to worry you on Rodgers?
No, not really. Why, did he come off early last game?
Well, he didn't because Watkins got hooked instead.
Yeah, Watkins came off.
that he's had quite a few pre-70 subs, hasn't he? I think it's just a fitness thing. Like
It's the fitness. I remember Emery alluded to that in his when he came off. It was before 60, wasn't it? A couple of game weeks ago. And Emery said he just played so much football that they had to. And then I think he got the rest in whatever the League Cup was.
if it's just a straight up choice
Champions League.
now, Semenyo Rodgers, where do you two stand, Harry?
Semenyo, he is on 4 yellows, but Semenyo.
Yeah, it's really close. Semenyo.
So marginally Semenyo. I'd probably say, like, if I had a fresh choice now, I'd maybe say marginally Semenyo. But I think if you've got money tied up in Rodgers again,
Only Haaland's taken more shots this season, which is mental when you think about it, because Haaland's like triple the price.
yeah, cool. Dibbling's my fifth midfielder, by the way. I just need to upgrade him ASAP. And then my front three doesn't look awful. I've got Rao, Wolves at home. It's just a bit of a clash of 8 Nuri, and then Cunha and Erling Haaland. So I still am in this Salah, Palmer, Haaland formation combo. As Harry's alluded to, my issue is I've got Cunha and Rao. I don't have a mid-price forward. I'm starting Rodgers every week. Dibbling's on the bench. And apart from Gabriel, I've got a pretty cheap defence.
So what's your plan with Haaland then?
So my plan is to keep him for this week. And if he doesn't deliver again, I mean, it's a very nice exit point, I think, game week 13, is to probably pivot to Saka. Or I could get rid of him this week. I've looked at, I can even do like Saka and Isak for Haaland and Dibbling, and it's like, that is just such an upgrade.
I mean, yeah.
Like Haaland and Dibbling to Saka.
Give me your phone, I'll do it now for you.
I know, like, like I looked at that and I was like, that's grossly...
I mean,
like,
that's pretty good for next game.
To be fair.
But then what I thought is, I actually think Haaland's really good for this week.
Yeah.
And to do that, I'm making a double move, which is okay, but he's using all my free transfers to then bench Rodgers, who I honestly don't mind starting against Crystal Palace. I feel like that's maybe a better switch next week. But if Haaland does go out there and get a hat-trick against Spurs, which is within his capability, then I will be sat at that stage where I'm like, maybe I stay a little bit longer on this 3. So my plan is to give Haaland, Palmer and Salah this one more week with that really 3 expensive players. But when I look at the structure of the 2 of your teams, when you're going to have those 3 midfielders, it just looks more well structured. So yeah, I can't see it. Dibbling's a huge issue for me because I just don't have that 8th attacker. And when I need an auto sub, then it's a defender that's auto subbing on for me. So yeah, that's the plan at the moment. So I think this week I either roll, or I think what is most likely is I'm going to sell Rico Lewis, and I think I'll go to Lewis Hall just to free up a bit of money for me, and then I'll bench Vandenberg. So yeah,
I like it.
I think the team looks good. Cool, awesome stuff. There you go. We're done. Thank you very much, lads, for doing the first 3-way on my podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I love that. That was great fun.
Thanks for the invite.
You know, worries. And you two have bonded being so close together there. But hope you guys did enjoy it. If you want more group therapy like this, where we invite more than one, we'll see how it goes in the edit, to be fair. But if you want more sort of group therapy where we have a couple of guests on, please let me know. Please make sure to check out FPL Focal and FPL Harry on YouTube. And you're also on audio, aren't you? Your videos.
Install the FPL Focal app. It's free.
Oh, there we go. A little shout out the FPL Focal. No, actually, I will give you a shout. It's a brilliant app, free to play. FPL Focal, just on App Store or Android.
Free to play.
Yeah, free. It's just
Free
free.
to play. Well, you can play on it, technically. It's got everything you could need and more.
It is
Do
really
check it out.
good. It is really good.
And also check out Harry's podcast, Know the Score, as well. Really, really enjoyable. Going through the games in a really chilled way. Luke's brilliant as well, the co-host, very funny. So
It's much better than I am.
yeah, exactly. I'm glad you said it. So check it out. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure to rate 5-star on audio, and I will catch you next time. Thanks, guys.